You know that meme of the guy in the classroom and he's got like a vein bulging from his head and he's trying to refrain from doing a thing? I don't know. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. That's me right now wanting to be like Civil War. Because you know how I love to say Civil War over and over and over again. But no, we're starting with a white pill in this 4 p.m. segment. And for those that aren't familiar, it just means some optimism, something good. Looking at what happened after the Roe v. Wade decision, the overturning of Roe and Casey, seeing the conflict, the insurrection in Arizona, where far leftists were trying to storm into a government building, seeing the violence, the riots, the fires, the attacks, the screaming, seeing the DOD, I don't know, this tweet got deleted, but seeing the executive branch come out defying the Supreme Court, saying no to their ruling. And I'm thinking, this country is being ripped apart, and it's exactly as I described it. Okay, not literally exactly, but you know what I mean? Figuratively exactly. Like in 2018, I said, when the culture war reaches the highest level of government, this country will be ripped apart. And people didn't think it would ever happen. The security state is too powerful. But now, Merrick Garland, the attorney general, has come out in defiance of the Supreme Court. This is the highest level of government butting heads. But that's not what I'm here to start the segment off with. While I do want to talk about the urgency and the chaos that stands before us, we have this story from timcast.com. More than 1 million voters leave the Democratic Party and switch to the GOP. It's something we have seen consistently over the past several years, but it is ramping up to an absurd degree. Over 1 million voters. The times they are a-changin', my friends, and this is cause for optimism. While I fear at the highest levels of government, people are ready to tear each other apart, and we're seeing conflict and violence in the streets, we are seeing a repudiation of the chaos. The Democratic Party, in my opinion, stands for nothing. And it's not just my opinion. There are many on the left. Jacobin Magazine, socialists, but even they rag on the Democrats. Look, we all rag on the Republicans too. But the Democratic Party establishment has the likes of Bill Kristol in their ranks. He's a neocon. Yes. The Democratic establishment stands for nothing but power. And they were willing to lie and feign wokeness and promote these ideas if it meant getting votes. But many of these people didn't know what they actually wanted or were talking about. It was just a downward spiral of chaos ripping this country apart. And regular people have said no. 1 million voters. And you know what else? How many voters haven't switched parties but have internally prepared to vote Republican? Excuse me. I was just talking to a friend of mine, lifelong Democrat, big Obama person, said that because of cryptocurrency, she's voting Republican now. And that to me was crazy. I'm like, but wait, for cryptocurrency? That's right. A friend of mine switched parties because of Bitcoin. I know all the Bitcoin people are hooting and cheering and high-fiving each other as if Bitcoin. No, the issue isn't necessarily Bitcoin. The issue is the left hates it. But people who believe in freedom, traditional liberals or otherwise, even people who are relatively woke but don't believe in authoritarianism, I know it's kind of a paradox, but there are many people who are like, oh, I think that's fine, just leave everybody alone. They look at cryptocurrencies as a way past the Federal Reserve, and there are leftist activists from the days of old, 2010, mind you, not that long ago, who hate the Federal Reserve and see crypto as an opportunity, but they're progressives. Now they see Democrats and the progressive machine lining up against it, and they're just like, I'm out. That to me was surprising, that you would get someone to support conservative social issues because of what the left has become. I know maybe cryptocurrency is not the biggest issue, but I think abortion really is a big issue. How many people like you or I are pro-choice, but the pro-choice side is now pro-abortion at 8 months gestation? Yo, that's not an abortion. That's just killing the baby because you could remove the baby and it could live. It's just crazy where we've gone. Well, let's take a look at what's going on. We'll take a look at what's happening with the Republican Party surging and what is ripping this country apart. We have an article from our good friend, Stephen Marsh. And I always say good friend somewhat facetiously, but Stephen Marsh is a cool guy. We had him on the show and I respect his opinions, but I think he gets a lot wrong. He's written about the next civil war, and I agree with him on this point. The end of Roe v. Wade is a major signal towards civil war. So as much as I try to resist saying it, it comes out. Let's jump to this first story from Timcast. Before we do, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this video with your friends, help support the work we do. As a member, you will get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast, Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. You will be keeping our journalists gainfully employed as we expand this operation. You'll be helping fund the new documentaries we're working on. We've got Federal Reserve and gun control as big issues we want to tackle in documentaries, deep diving on these issues. And our infrastructure. We are using infrastructure that is more resilient to big tech censorship to support the companies that believe in free speech. That's what your membership is getting behind. From Timcast, and share the video, smash the like button. From Timcast.com, more than 1 million voters leave the Democrats and switch to the GOP. Democrats urge Biden to change course to avoid being demolished in the midterms. Oh, they're hoping that the issue of Roe v. Wade will muster up some votes. It might. But I think gas prices, it's just going to be more prescient. Here's the thing. In the suburbs is where we are seeing the biggest shift. Do you think these suburban women with their kids are worried about Roe v. Wade or about, baby formula or, $5 a gallon gas? Over 1 million voters across 43 states have left the Democratic Party and joined the Republican Party over the last year, according to voter registration data analyzed by the Associated Press. The shift is most prominent in the suburbs, where swing voters who supported Biden are grappling with 40-year high inflation, record gas prices, skyrocketing crime, and the Democratic Party's focus on racial equity. Quote, "It's more so a rejection of the left than embracing the right," said Ben Smith, a 37-year-old professional counselor. With 134 days until the midterm elections, no outcome is guaranteed. But the new data is a fresh warning to Democrats who have already seen signs of major potential losses in November. Some of those warnings have come from within their own party. Quote, "I support the president's efforts, but we need a bolder vision and faster action," said Rep. Ro Khanna, a Democrat. Michael Stratton, a Democratic strategist, told the Daily Mail, "Democrats need to wake up here and smell the coffee." I just want to point out, isn't there nothing better than waking up and smelling a fresh pot of coffee? Trying to divert attention to unemployment numbers that is not going to take away the average person's concern about inflation, said Chad Campbell, an Arizona-based Democratic strategist. When you're paying $5.50 a gallon for gas, it doesn't matter what your job is. It's expensive. Yo, I'm going to go buy another electric car. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I can. And I appreciate everybody who supports the work we do that allows me to say something like, I'm going to buy an electric car. Some people say it's a comparable expense. Yo, it's not. It is not. I mean, maybe electricity is being subsidized or otherwise. Maybe it can't last. We're getting solar panels installed. We have solar panels installed at our new facility. I can charge my car off the sun. And in the long run, we will save a little bit of money. I know it's a big, complicated economic process, but it is cheaper in the long run. Driving when gas is at $5, they're saying it might reach $10. It might reach an average of $8. Man. So I do have an electric car. They're like twice the cost of your average car, but car costs are skyrocketing. I have my thoughts on that. Not everybody can do it. It's crazy. What is their solution to regular people who aren't going to be able to drive to work? We already have a labor shortage, a supply chain shortage. It's only getting worse, and it is Joe Biden's fault. Look, it's one thing to point to policies that Joe Biden has enacted that's hurt us in terms of gas prices, and there are. And the left will try to say, oh, he doesn't control gas prices. Then why is Biden coming out saying he's enacting policies to lower gas prices? Because he can. The question is, what would Donald Trump have done? And one simple answer is many people say that Donald Trump would have come out, convened a meeting of the top executives at oil companies and said, get these prices down. How do we do it? Rescinding regulations, drill, baby, drill, whatever the answer. People would want it. State legislators have recently called on Biden to reverse course on his environmental policies, which are constraining domestic energy production as part of his climate agenda. Quote, "We urge you and your administration to reject any well-intentioned but misguided calls to curtail American crude oil and or petroleum exports in reaction to the high gasoline and diesel prices currently seen at the pump," a group of Texas Democrats wrote. As you know, domestic gasoline prices are set up by an international benchmark, Brent, and restricting U.S. crude exports would lower global supply and increase costs here at home. Joe Biden explicitly stated his intent in getting us off of fossil fuels. When I see all these people being like, we need electric cars, you know what I think? I think these people have invested in electric car companies. I think these people are just trying to sell more cars. I think Honda and Ford and whatever, not directly, I'm saying the car companies, they're probably thinking, how do we get people to buy more cars when they already have one? I know. Let's tell them they got to stop using gas. We'll sell them electric cars. Profit, baby. I am not a staunch laissez-faire capitalist. Never have been. Here we go. So people are quitting the Democratic Party. It is a rebuke of the Democratic establishment for all that it entails. And that's the good news. I didn't want to lead with the bad news, even though I kind of did. Here's the bad news. This country is being gutted. The Roe v. Wade decision shows the chaos boiling at the center. From the Washington Post. After Roe ruling, Garland gears up for the next legal battles. In decrying historic legal decision, the Attorney General vows to fight on several abortion-related fronts. Wait, hold on. When the Supreme Court came out and said, here is our opinion on guns. May issue states, you can't do it. You are now shall issue. The AG comes out, the DOJ, and they're like, we disagree with this. What? Many lawyers said, what are they doing? Issuing a statement rejecting the federal government's own judicial statements? That's crazy. They're doing it again. Attorney General is from the Washington Post. Attorney General Merrick Garland signaled Friday that in response to the Supreme Court's historic decision allowing states to limit or ban abortions, the DOJ is preparing for legal battles on a host of related issues, from women traveling to states where the procedures are legal to accessing pills that can induce abortions. There is little the DOJ can do to alter the impact of the decision, which is now the law of the land and is expected to significantly restrict abortion across 13 states in the short term. Quote, this decision deals a devastating blow to reproductive freedom in the U.S., Garland said in a statement. But Garland, a former federal appeals court judge, also laid down important markers for how the Biden DOJ will handle any legal aftershocks of the decision, such as if states try to pass laws preventing women from traveling to other states to get abortions. Garland said bedrock constitutional principles protect women's rights to seek reproductive care in the states where abortions remain legal. New York's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul immediately declared her state a safe harbor for those seeking abortions. I can only say you better stay there after going. Some states probably will still go after women. However, for the time being, I don't think any state is penalizing the woman for getting the abortion. They're penalizing the doctors. So what is this? A virtue signal? Yes, that's what it is. Okay, why is Garland coming out and saying this? It's a virtue signal. It's meaningless. It's a bad idea. And it shows the culture war is splitting the federal government in half, or at least at the seams. We'll see what happens in November. The good news is, with regular people lining up to vote Republican, it is a strong rebuke of these policies. It's no guarantee anything positive happens. And then we have this. The insurrection that's taking place over Roe v. Wade is not just in the federal government. I'm saying that facetiously, calm down, Media Matters. I'm saying that there is a revolt, that people are rejecting this, and it's splitting this country in half. From timcast.com. Pro-abortion protesters attempt to breach Arizona Capitol building, force Senate into recess. The protesters were banging on the windows and attempting to break them to get inside, according to DPS, which prompted the Senate to go into recess. Sounds like attempted insurrection. Quote, Senate immediately bails out because of a security situation. Area outside Senate filled with people protesting Roe decision. They appear to have entered the building. Cops were firing tear gas from the building. Mary Jo Pitzel says, State Senate assembles in a hearing room to continue work on major water legislation because the fumes from tear gas outside is too thick in the chambers. Police fired tear gas after people at an abortion rally pounded on the doors and window. State Senator Michelle Ugenti-Rita posted videos from inside the building, though it did not appear that any protesters had actually made it inside. Oh, thank heavens. Only an attempted insurrection. When the AG is coming out and they're like, no, Supreme Court, that's worrying. A virtue signal indeed, but it results in this. The people outside who are screaming don't know why they're mad. I'm sorry, that is a statement of fact. The people. I'm talking about the plurality. There are probably some who do know why they're mad. Some might be mad for capitalism, capitalist reasons unrelated to abortion, and they're using it as an excuse. Many of these people don't even know what happened. But it results in the chaos we see today. With the end of Roe, the U.S. edges closer and closer to civil war. Stephen Marsh, the question is no longer whether there will be a civil conflict in America. The question is how the sides will divide and who will prevail. Stephen is correct in a broad sense, and he's wrong in a direct sense. He's wrong because his perspective is based on left-biased media. On the right, they argue for moderation. On the left, they argue for domination. Stephen Marsh's perspective is rooted in domination, not moderation. What I mean is, if you're listening to a conservative, they'll say something like, we don't want to ban abortion right now. We want the Supreme Court to overturn Roe so the states can decide. A compromise. Now, many pro-lifers, but probably not the plurality of the right, wants nationwide abortion bans. The problem is, among the actual right-wing faction, whatever you want to call it, they're arguing only for the state's ability to decide for themselves, meaning blue states retain their rights and red states retain their rights. The left wants nationwide a ban on abortion bans. That is a domination position. Everyone must live the way we decide. And the right says your state should decide. So you can live in an abortion state or a non-abortion state. Moderation versus domination. Stephen Marsh doesn't get it. He writes, the cracks in the foundations of the United States are widening rapidly and on several fronts. The overturning of Roe v. Wade has provoked a legitimacy crisis, no matter what your politics. For the right, the leaking of the draft memo last month revealed the breakdown of bipartisanship and common purpose within the institution. For the left, it demonstrated the will of dubiously selected Republican justices to overturn established rights that have somewhere between 70 and 80% political support. Wrong. Stephen Marsh. You see, this is the issue. From the point of domination, not moderation. No, the established rights do not have near 70 or 80% political support. Technically correct, but mostly wrong. Let's break this down. When you look at the polls, you will get a wide plethora of statements. Do you support Roe v. Wade? 70 to 80% actually say yes. Okay, well, it sounds like he's right? No. You need to ask them what they know of Roe v. Wade and what they really mean. When you look at the general outline of the abortion issue, 2/3 of people believe there should be viability restrictions. And that's what many states were trying to implement. Only a small faction of around 10 to 20% believe there should be limitless abortion. But that's the left conversation. Democrats tried to codify abortion up to 9 months. It's crazy. They literally did. And they said in instances where the mother's health is at risk. I get it. But abortion is legally defined as ending a pregnancy in a way that terminates the life of the baby. If a woman has a viable baby within her, but her health is at risk, removing the baby doesn't need to kill it. So why would they attempt to legalize the killing of it? That would be very important for Stephen Marsh to include in his breakdown of what's happening. He says accelerating political violence like the attack in Buffalo. The Buffalo attacker was a self-described center-left authoritarian concerned about racial issues. Racial issues are not left or right. The left has their identitarians and so does the right. He says increasingly blurs the line between mainstream political conservative movement and outright murderous insanity. The question is no longer whether there will be a civil conflict in the U.S. The question is how the sides will divide, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and how those strengths and weaknesses will determine the outcome. All right. He goes on to mention that the right has been imagining civil war publicly since the Obama administration, yada, yada, yada. Mentioning people saying the roots of the tree of liberty. Yeah, we get it. I don't like those statements either. I get the quote, the tree of liberty and all that stuff. And I understand what Thomas Jefferson meant to say. I don't like people saying violence and violence and violence. I don't like them saying that it has to be done. It doesn't have to be done. Peaceful revolution is possible. I don't like the fact that there would be a revolution or a civil war. He goes on to mention Tucker Carlson has articulated the theory of white replacement more than 400 times on his show. And therefore, the guy in Buffalo was conservative. He certainly was not conservative at all. He was a communist. That's the crazy thing. So ultimately, I say this. You know, it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what Stephen Marsh thinks. What matters is the conflict is real, and he thinks it's inevitable. How will they divide? What are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? I'm going to lay it down very simply for you, my friends. The right will win. Let me tell you why. The left will point out that they have the GDP. They say, we're the ones who fund these red areas in these red states. Look at all the money we give them. I'm sorry. What do you do in cities? Do you make food? You don't. You're right. The right gets access to schematics, intellectual property, machinery, movies, and all that good stuff. But it's the red areas that, I don't know, are mining rocks for your cement, growing your food, harvesting natural resources. It's not being done in urban centers. Now, the mind work is, not all of it, but a lot of it. If a war were to break out, what's going to be more important to your survival? Your ability to grow and maintain crops, or your ability to determine whether or not a certain pipe will fit a certain valve and allow the flow of a certain chemical to reach its destination? Now, that's an important thing. Oh, but I should say this. That work is also being done in rural areas by like petroleum engineers and chemical plant engineers. So maybe there's a better example. What's more important? Your ability to raise chickens, knowing how to breed them and how to feed them, or your ability to write an article about Brad Pitt's junk? Sorry, dude. It may make more money. Raising chickens is not particularly profitable relative to running a media organization. But if you're a CEO of a media company in New York and you know how to advertise, is that going to help you win a conflict or feed your children? No. Let's say you're the editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed. When everything breaks down and roads are getting shut down and people are fighting, do you have the skills to survive? No. Not every conservative does, but conservatives tend to live in rural areas. People who live in rural areas are more likely to survive in a rural area than someone in an urban environment. What will a city do if they're not getting food? Therein lies the problem. It doesn't matter who you think is right morally. It matters who has the means to actually fight. Now, if the left faction holds the seat of government, the army, the law enforcement, all that stuff, that's power right there. But what if we get a red wave? What if Donald Trump takes over in 2024 along with the Republican supermajority in the House and the Senate? And they can steamroll through whatever they want. Well, then you're probably going to see the left get crushed. Antifa will go super violent and you will see weird conflict. Let me show you what they're posting. I can't show you all of it. Greg Price says, the Babylon Bee still does not have a Twitter account for saying that Rachel Levine is a man. And I'm not going to show you everything said. I'm just going to inform you of this tweet. Carlos Maza basically told people to commit terrorism. Andrew Tarantola, verified, told people to commit an act of terrorism. One Twitter user, retweeted by Carlos Maza, posted the home address of Brett Kavanaugh. And there's more. More tweets calling for terrorism. Will these people be arrested? I don't see it. I don't see it. The Republicans will need to get in and use power, which I don't think they will. That's why I think civil war is inevitable. I don't think you're going to see a strongman takeover. Donald Trump was unwilling to use law enforcement and military to shut down the violent riots that swept this country. It's maybe some reason people are mad at him. Some people thought that Joe Biden would actually clamp down. Seriously, they did. Staten Island shopper describes a moment she was standing shoulder to shoulder with Rudy Giuliani as he was hit by a grocery store worker and says the strike was so hard she felt it. Rudy Giuliani was in a grocery store. Someone asked to take a photo with him. A worker walked up and slapped him on the back. It wasn't a full forced swing, full cocked wham into Rudy Giuliani. Nah, it was a hard pat. You can see Rudy Giuliani get, jostled forward and he turns and the woman starts rubbing his back like, whoa, what the? Rudy Giuliani's 78. He was attacked by this guy who was angry about Roe v. Wade. When people begin randomly attacking other people, you see it coming, don't you? Oh, and there's more. Oh, here we are. Libs of TikTok says they literally want you dead. Okay. In this viral post from Reddit, someone, Rip Throwaway, it's a fake account they just made, said the radical Christians are found in rural areas. Their towns are defenseless. They have no cops and their firemen are volunteers. They have to borrow cops and firemen from neighboring jurisdictions miles away in order to handle anything big, and they think they're safe out there. He goes on to say that people should show up and attack them. These people are so dumb. They are so dumb. Do you think that radical Christian rural areas are defenseless? Have you not read a single piece of news about the Second Amendment that's just come out? Bro, my neighbors and I talk about guns. Not for anything other than like, oh, you got one of those. Oh, how is it? How does it handle? Do you like it? I've got a Chiappa lower bore 357, and I haven't used it. And I was talking to my neighbor, and I mentioned, he's like, oh, you got one of those lower bore, right? So the recoil is more direct. How is it? And I'm like, I haven't actually got a chance to use it. We'll take it to the range. He's like, oh, okay. And then he explains what he has, and I'm like, really? I talk about the 9mm Makarov Soviet, what is like a PA-64 or something it's called. And I'm like, terrible weapon, terrible. The Soviets, they did not care for making weapons that were good to use. This one bites, right? It's a 9mm. They use Soviet bolts. They're called Makarov. And I accidentally ordered them, so I got this gun. It's a Cold War era gun. It's really cool. And when you fire, it hurts your hand. I got a Beretta, very comfortable. But let me just point out, bro, rural areas are strapped. They are armed to the teeth. The fact that somebody made this post, sure, probably one random person, but we are seeing a wave of people on social media call for terrorism, violence, and civil war. You want to show up 100 deep in a rural town? Please don't. Please do not do it. Defenseless you are wrong. It is a scary day. It will be a scarier day if 100 random leftist Antifa type show up to a rural town to commit violence. Because the people in these small towns are going to walk out and they're all going to have AR-15s, Mini 14s. They're going to have M1s. They're going to have Scar 20S. They're going to have all of it. Someone's going to walk out with their Benelli. Someone's going to walk out with their KSG. And they're just going to be like, you don't know anything about us. We did not bring this to you. You brought this to yourself. And that will be bad. You have to be a special kind of stupid to think you're going to walk into a rural area and commit violence. Don't do it. It's morally wrong, it's legally wrong, and it will get you killed. This is where we are. Stephen L. Miller pointing this one out. This is great. Bill Kristol talking about the radicalism of the majority's decision, even though in 1998 he wrote Roe Must Go. The reason I highlight this is to show you that the Civil War is not rooted in any principle among the left. It is just, we want power, and they will kill to get it. Bill Kristol, a neocon who wrote Roe Must Go, is now calling it, or quoting them, saying it's radicalism. He does not care about what is true and what is principled. He cares about power. That's what these people propose. Here we have Elizabeth Warren. Calls for the Supreme Court expansion after Roe is overturned. Okay, here we go, baby. They're trying to usurp power. They are not satisfied with losing on constitutional grounds. They don't know what they're protesting. Many people are saying, keep your Bible out of my body. The Supreme Court did not assert any Christian moral value in their overturning of Roe and Casey. They said, we do not have the constitutional authority to set this precedent. It is overturned. They don't. The states have to decide, or Congress. Some have argued Congress can't because not enumerated in the Constitution. Technically, that's correct under the 9th and 10th Amendment, but I don't know if it's literally legal. It depends on what the Supreme Court will say, and I'm not a judge. What I can say is the Democrats can codify these rules under the law. Some argue they can't, and the states would have to do it. So what's the end result? The left doesn't care about states. They view this country as one country, and it's weird because you live in New York, you're not going to Texas for an abortion. What do you care? But there are liberals who live there. Then don't live there. I don't know what to tell you. The end result of this is that Democrats, liberals, and leftists want everyone to live the way they demand. And the conservatives, libertarians, post-liberals, moderates want people to be able to live as they see fit in their own jurisdictions. The end result is chaos. One side is trying to force you to bend the knee. One side is saying, leave me alone. So where does this go? It's the perfect example, the rural township thing. Regular people minding their own business in their small town who don't care about what you're doing say, leave me alone, and you show up to commit violence against them. That's the reality. It won't work. And that's why I think this country is headed towards some kind of, well, I think the collapse happened already, and now we're just being ripped apart. Stephen Marsh, his previous opinion piece in The Guardian was that civil war was coming and that we're in civil strife. His position now is that there is no way to stop it. This is what he writes. He says, let me make sure I can get this. 2 essential facts of the 2020 election should give left-wing partisans hope. Biden voting counties amounted to 70% of the GDP, while 60% of college-educated voters chose Biden. That is to say, left Democratic wing of America is the productive and educated part of the country. One way of looking at the American political condition of the moment is that the left-wing part of the U.S. has built the networks that have left behind the right-wing part. The networks are the left's strength. That's true. Communication is power, and the left has it. But they don't make food. But they don't make resources. The GDP of this country is in its IP. It's in its ownership of stocks. Meaningless in war. I'll say it again. Imagine this. World War II breaks out. There's fighting in France. The Germans have gone completely around the Maginot Line, and they've breached the country. It was immediately surrendering. And the French president says, quick, we need someone who can write mathematics. It's like, okay, I mean, math can help, sure. No, what they're saying is we need a bunch of dudes with guns to storm in and push them back. We need la résistance. No one's calling for an astronomer. Now, okay, maybe that's not the GDP, but no one's calling for an electric car maker. They're saying, I don't know or care. We want to blow stuff up and fight people. In a conflict, there is value in that. If a civil war broke out, you may have in a city electric car makers, and they say, we can make powerful machines. We know how. Let's put together this machine that can fire missiles. Okay, send it to the factory. Sir, the factory is 60 miles outside of the city in a suburban/rural area, and it's been taken over within minutes. Uh-oh. The factories where all these things are made are not in the cities? Who would have thought? So what is in the cities? The intellectual property and the organization. Yo, you do not know what you're talking about, Stephen. You don't understand. You're Canadian. You understand the fighting is happening, but you don't get the realities of how this country is operating. Water, power, chemical plants, they are not in cities. The cities will have to try and target them, but yo, I'm just telling you, you don't know how this will go, and neither will I. But suffice it to say, it's not so lopsided like you might think. The good news is that Americans are actually lining up against the left. And we may be inching towards civil war, but Stephen is wrong. Suburban moms, they're voting Republican. The liberal elites don't have this one, even with Roe v. Wade being overturned. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.